meeting of the Person County Board of Commissioners Strategic Planning Retreat, Part 2, to order at this time. And note that we do have a quorum. And then note also that Commissioner Puryear is unable to attend due to work responsibilities this morning. And so this being a retreat and again a Part 2, that we move right along with the meeting as presented in our notes. First on the agenda would be discussion, adjustment, and approval of the agenda. In your motion to approve, please note that there's an adjustment there, and that adjustment would be with the addition of closed session number 2 and an ordinance approving, is that R2 zoning?
RC.
RC zoning,
C.
okay.
Can you do that?
Map amendment and application R2, RZ 0223. Do we have a motion to approve with the amendment?
Motion to approve the agenda.
Motion on the floor, any discussion? Hearing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, none, motion carried. All right, Madam Manager?
Well, I
Uh,
believe the first order of business is to approve the ordinance.
It is, I'm sorry, and I've got it right here before me. An ordinance approving rezoning map that I just mentioned in the amended schedule, but rezoning map amendment application RZ 0223. And all of you have that before you, and so we'll take a motion for that ordinance.
I'd like to make a motion to approve this ordinance on rezoning on the map amendment application RZ-02-23.
Have a motion on the floor. Any discussion or questions?
I would just like to
go
add
ahead.
that this adoption of this ordinance is to formalize the documentation supporting the decision that the board made Monday night. So it is not anything different, it's just to formalize the documentation for that decision that was already made.
Okay. Anybody understand?
I understand.
Okay.
He made the motion.
He did?
Yes.
Oh, yeah.
All right. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? None. Motion carried. All right. Strategic planning,
Yes.
Manager Kathy.
Okay, we will move into our focus for this morning. I do understand that we have some time constraints. We do need to finish up by 11:15. That is the time that I'm aware of. Does anyone have a different ending time where they need to be out of here? Okay. So we will work towards that being the ending time for our meeting, also keeping in mind that we do have 2 closed sessions to attend to before we finish up. So this morning, we are going to revisit the values, vision, and mission that we discussed during the last strategic planning retreat. We'd like to review what we have drafted for both of those items, find out if those need any more work or if we're good where they are now. Then we are going to work on goal setting and then discuss the next steps in the process. So what we hope to accomplish today is to finalize the values, vision, and mission, and then to talk in more detail about goals that support the vision and mission. And from there, once the board has provided some input into the goal setting, next week our department heads are having a retreat. We did have to reschedule the previous one due to many conflicts that had arisen. So we'll be having our retreat next Thursday, and department heads will look at these goals that have been put into place and start brainstorming strategies to support the accomplishment of those goals, which will ultimately feed into the budget process, tie into the budget process as we start making those plans for the next fiscal
And
year.
which location is that still?
It's gonna be at Mayo.
Mayor, yeah.
Yep. Okay, so going back to the values that we discussed the last time around, we have not made many changes to this. We did make them a little more succinct, but they're still pretty wordy in the interest of explaining what each of these values means. Starting with community, we are welcoming, inclusive, and accessible. We are family friendly, celebrate our traditions, and foster strong community spirit. We prioritize public safety and personal well-being. So does that value resonate with you? Are there any questions or suggestions for that particular value and the explanation of it?
My thoughts is it covers everything in my heart, as a representative.
Okay. So the next one is opportunity. We work to create economic growth, financial security, and personal and professional enrichment for individuals and businesses to prosper. Feel free to stop me if you have any questions or any suggestions for any of these. Yes.
Question, where, do we have anything here, and I'm trying to see real quick, education?
So, it's not specifically spelled out, but the personal and professional enrichment was meant to, relate to education.
Okay.
And,
Well, I actually thought about that at the very top, but just so it's included there someplace, because I think that's an important part of the puzzle of Person County and its future. And this board has done an outstanding job of supporting education, and so I don't know if we need to plug that in somewhere in one of these, that we would show support for education, lifelong learning, however
Right.
you'd like to phrase it.
right, I do like that lifelong learning.
Yeah, okay.
I think,
Because we do pretty much subscribe to the thought of K-14 learning and support it, and so somewhere in
Okay.
there, that language.
We have it in our mission statement.
Yeah.
So, I mean, I
Yeah,
think it
yeah.
should be,
that
Probably should
needs
be
to
incorporate it
reflect-
more
right.
clearly into the values. Okay? All right. Anything else about that one? All right. Stewardship. We take responsibility for our natural, historical, economic, and human resources. We act resourcefully, promote equity and sustainability, and seek efficiency and innovation.
I think we are all pretty much on the page of that one.
Okay?
So,
Service. We provide high-quality customer service as public servants who share a vision for and commitment to our community. We build and sustain relationships and achieve excellence through teamwork.
I think that's a home run hitter there.
Professionalism. We adhere to ethical standards and take ownership of our responsibilities. As knowledgeable leaders in our community, we exercise kindness, respect, empathy, courage, creativity, humility, and flexibility.
This one we did a little modification on, didn't we, at the last meeting?
I know we plugged in the word knowledgeable there.
Yeah,
That was added the last
Right.
time around.
as a
That
summary,
was the main change.
I like it myself, as it
Okay.
is.
And then transparency. We act with honesty, integrity, and respect. We are accountable to the public. Communication is a priority. Okay. So, we have not, this is a lot. We have not been able to come up with a catchy acronym or anything to help make these values more memorable, but we will, continue to look at that, and this is something that we will make sure we incorporate into our new employee orientation once our strategic plan is adopted, so that employees understand, the values of the organization. If we boil them down into just the main words, it looks something like that. But it's something that we want employees to really have in mind as they go about their work. And for the commissioners to have in mind too, as you're making decisions, that we reflect back on our organizational values and how those relate to the decisions that we're making and the work that we're doing.
Once this is finalized, I mean, this is really, this is what you go to as an employee, as county commissioners, this is what everyone to adhere to. And when you have your reviews, this is how are they doing with their core values as
Right.
part of it. So, anyway, I'm
Do you
good.
incorporate this into your department head meetings and just as a reminder sort of thing with employees and?
Yes, we certainly can going forward once we get this finalized, and then we can figure out different strategies for how to do that. It will also support the budget process, so it'll be something that we'll think about as departments are putting together their budgets, and we hope to incorporate into the budget document some references to this as departments go through to justify, the budget requests that they're making.
Okay.
All right, so now our vision and mission statements. Vision. Person County is a safe, thriving, and diverse community where people come to live, work, learn, play, serve, and grow.
Got a typo there, but that's okay.
Oh, where's the typo?
People come.
Where people come to
There
live.
should be a space there. It's not on mine. Other than
Oh,
that,
okay. It's on a different line up here, so I'm not sure what happened over there.
And I can read it, but
Okay.
if it's to
Yeah.
go in print, then just
Sure,
Put a
yes,
space in
we will
there.
make sure that those words are separated. Any thoughts on the vision statement? Does that capture what you're looking for?
I think it's great.
I'm good. I think that reflects, and we've said it numerous times, even in campaigns, we like to say live, work, and raise your family, but that extends it a little more, and I think it's very good.
Okay. And then for mission, we provide effective government that enhances the quality of life for individuals and businesses in Person County by preserving our local history and resources, facilitating economic growth, and supporting lifelong learning.
I went back and looked at other mission statements from other counties. And the one thing that kind of stuck out to me is, and I know we have it in our values, we, and we have it in the mission statement. Just about all the mission statements I read, it usually says to provide. Not we provide, but to provide. And I'm just
Okay.
saying, that was one of the things I picked up on when I read all the other ones. We want to leave we, okay, but that's just something when you see, when I read all the other ones that I was going through just to see how we
Okay.
compared, it was to.
And we did have that initially, and I did change that, not for any, I guess, because in a lot of places you'll see our mission is to provide, or it just starts out with to provide. So we can certainly go back to that.
That's just me throwing it
Yeah,
out to the
and I
board.
can't say that I had an excellent reason for switching it to we, but that was a change that I had made to the
I
wording.
think
So
they
if y'all,
reflect off of each other, so either way, I'm fine with it. Either way, change it or leave it as is, I don't care.
we can give that a little more thought. Is there a preference of anyone else, whether that begins with we or to? I think to is a more standard way to begin the mission statements.
Yeah. Just what I've noticed with the other ones when I went back and reviewed and see how we compared and how ours, as far as wording goes, with the
Okay.
other ones.
And one thing, as I was just reading it out loud, what about the word services after government? We provide effective government services that enhance the quality of life. Or do we want to just leave it at government?
Well, it might be good to add it. We know what it means,
Mhm.
but for someone in the public, so to speak,
When
or
we
someone
put-
new.
Again, so, where's this services,
The word services is not in there now.
Oh, it's
Just
not.
as I read it out loud, it felt like it might be missing to
Where
me,
would you-
but we provide effective government services that enhance the quality of life.
That would be an added sentence,
Just an added word.
added word.
We provide effective
Oh,
government
okay, I see, yeah.
services.
Okay, I got you.
I was
That
looking at one
enhance-
that had public services, government, I mean, that was one that, you know, to provide, high-quality, customer-focused public services to our residents. But again, that's just one I noticed when I was going through them.
Do y'all like it the way it is, or would you like
I
to
think
add
we need to add that word.
services?
You know, again, we understand, we know what it's
Mhm.
about, but when others read it, be a good addition.
Okay. Anything else that y'all would like to tweak to these? Okay. All right, well, ultimately, we will create a document along these lines. I'll go back and edit based on our discussion this morning. But something that really pulls together that is, a reference point, like I said, for new employees, at employee orientation, where they get a clear look at the vision and mission of the organization and the values that we're using for our operations. So any other thoughts on those? Okay,
I've got not that I have a problem with it, but a lot of this seems repetitive.
mm-hmm,
And I saw that a couple times as I reviewed this, through email. But not that that's a adverse or conflicting statement. I just think it's kind of repetitive. But I'm fine with it as it is.
And in some ways, they will naturally overlap,
right,
Right.
right.
from one to the other. And,
Right. Yeah.
and from the old teacher standpoint, positive reinforcement, we say it over.
Well, that's a good
To,
thought, yeah. To
to keep it-
reemphasize, yeah.
Yeah, I do think some of those important keywords appear in multiple places.
Yeah.
Okay. All right then, let's think about our goal setting. And just to go back over what we are trying to accomplish here. So goals are developed and adopted by the governing body and communicate broad initiatives or activities. So they kind of set the framework, for what we're doing. So a 2 to 4 year view of priorities that as a local government, we're establishing to achieve, going back to that vision that you have created for the community. Focus on creating 3 to 5 goals that describe guardrails rather than specific actions. So those specific actions are really going to come when we start developing the strategies and how departments are going to carry out those or accomplish the goals. So we need to think about, do the goals support the vision and mission? Are they realistic? Are they easy to read and understand? And are they measurable? So we want to be able to, in the end, our objective is to create measurable goals and strategies so that we can determine when they've actually been accomplished. So the strategies are going to be the action steps, and we're not going to get into those today. They're going to describe specific tasks, outputs, or outcomes, typically within a 1 to 2 year completion period. So basically, we're establishing goals which are a little more long range, looking out 2 to 4 years. And then when we start developing our strategies, those are going to be the action steps that we're going to take on a more immediate basis to start making movement towards accomplishing the goals. And number of strategies assigned to each goal will vary, typically between 3 and 7. So again, going back, are the strategies realistic? And that has a lot to do with the budget process. And do we have the financial means to accomplish these strategies? Do we have the personnel to accomplish them? Is this something that the community wants and is willing to support. So all of those things have to be taken into consideration. We have to determine who will be responsible for the strategies. And then how are we going to report progress back to the board? So we will create some type of scorecard type document where we can report back on progress made towards achieving the goals over the course of the year.
Maybe once a year,
Certainly once a year, twice a year may be reasonable, or it may be that we have to ease into it, and kind of that may evolve over time in terms of how we approach that. But I think it'll be important to be able to provide feedback to the board and the public in terms of progress that's being made.
Generally, I look at things like this from a question standpoint to myself. Whatever we're looking at and talking about going forward and achieving some goals, number one with me, is there a need? Do we really need it? Then my second thought is it doable? Can we really, honestly do that in Person County government? And then the strategies of how to achieve that would come in, and one of those factors would be finances. And so that's my general train of thought along those lines. So, and I think it's good to, as Commissioner Palmer has mentioned here, how often do we review? It's good to take a look back at, what we're doing, just say today, any given day, 6 months later or a year later. What have we done? Have we tried? Have we accomplished it? What were the roadblocks and going forward? So I think, again, revisiting those goals over a periodic time and not a long term, frequently.
Mm-hmm. Yes, that's a good point, and those are good questions to ask that you just brought up.
I think at a minimum, we need to do at least once a year. I don't think we
Definitely.
do.
Probably, yeah.
Yes,
Any-
and
Like
possibly,
midway, I think a good lapse of time should give us a good, solid, foundation to work off of.
we'll just have to figure out a process that's manageable, that will not take up too much time, to analyze, the frequency, figuring out the frequency of that and how much information we are feeding into that report back, so that it is manageable and not taking up too much time to generate the report. But it is certainly good to go back and look at data and look at progress and be able to report out on that. These are examples that I had shown you in our previous retreat. This is an example from Rollsville, North Carolina. And this just shows how they created groupings of goals. Their 4 groupings were, or focus areas were, community connection, mindful growth, planned investment, organizational excellence. And then under each of those groupings, they created 4 goals that fit within each of those categories and supported that aspect of their vision. So under community connection, a couple of examples are provide a broad mix of arts, culture, and recreation opportunities with cross-generational appeal, and create opportunities to recognize the town's history and diversity. When you look at organizational excellence, there were 4 goals, and one of those being goal number 16, which is the last one listed there: recruit and retain outstanding personnel by creating an innovative culture that values professional development. And if you look to the right, you can see where they have built upon those goals with their strategies. So goal 16, recruit and retain outstanding personnel by creating an innovative culture that values professional development. So 2 strategies that they developed to support that. 1, support the organizational mission and values by consistently communicating them to employees. And that strategy was assigned to the finance department. And you can see various steps that they're reporting out that they took over the course of the year to accomplish that goal. provided a copy of the strategic plan to employees, core values reviewed during bi-monthly performance coaching, created report to update plan progress, new hires received strategic plan at onboarding, incorporated into the fiscal year 22 budget development. And then a strategy that was assigned to human resources, develop and fund a town-wide training plan, implement and track progress from the plan. And the steps there, town-wide plan developed that addresses training and wellness, implementation underway. Funding was included in the budget. New HR director is assessing needs, will develop a plan. And I think those, the green bars to the right there within each of those boxes also are an indicator of how much progress has been made. I don't know that for a fact, but I believe that that is a pictorial representation that for 16.1, the finance department is reporting, we've basically gotten to where we wanted to be with this particular strategy this year. And then the HR department has, it's half full there in that green bar, because a couple of those strategies they've reported are still in development or underway. So it's another representation of, yes, we have accomplished what we set out to do, or it's still a work in progress. So an easy way to kind of glance through a document and see what progress has been made. So we can look at a way to measure that graphically as well, or present that graphically as well.
When I see this, it reminds me of the Uptown Roxborough group. We have our, it's broken down different topics, but it's broken down just like this, and we set goals. And, ours is organizational, economic development, design, and promotions. And of course, the four goals, and then underneath those goals, we have dates, or we have, when do we want to accomplish this, and what to accomplish. So it kind of reminds me of that. And we basically review that every meeting we have, we kind of go over it. But I'm not saying we do that with county commissioners, but that's something that we do almost every meeting, is that where we at with our planning for 2023 or 2024. And so, again, that's what it reminds me of. It's just
Yeah.
a little different.
Yeah, it is a good thing, like you said, to go back and revisit and make sure we're staying on track throughout the course of the year and working towards those goals.
You know,
Oh, go ahead.
as we were looking at goals, I mean, there's three things that I think of, and then how we accomplish them, how we measure, and what have you. But mine is basically economic growth in our county, and then the next is education. And then I always throw this in, not the best time to mention it, but anyway, reduce the times of our inspections, all throughout all the different departments, but reduce the times of inspection. And so I know we were able to track the inspections, we've gotten reports on that, and I think, we can come up with something on economic growth, tracking that, and then what we would like, when we say economic growth, what are we looking at? And in education, we've already been, invested a lot of money in our school in this past year, and then what else can we do to improve our education for the next 2, 3, 4 years? But those were the three things that I had and came up right away when I thought about this.
Good. Thank you for
I
sharing.
agree with all of those, and I think it shows the effort of this board in those categories, that we're heading in the right direction, doing the right thing. Inspections were down to 7 weeks out, and a year ago, we were 12, 14, 16 weeks out, so we made a tremendous move in the right direction there, and regrettably, we did lose an employee there, and he was a veteran, and they were doing a good job, and we're going full speed ahead, so then, so here comes HR now. You gotta find us a replacement that will follow that person very good. But, but to your point, I think we're standing by what we have said we wanna do and what the community and county needs and doing a good job of that. We just wanna continue. So are you gonna use some of these as guidelines and then come back for a final version for approval?
Yes, so
at
let's,
some
we'll
point?
talk some more about your specific goals and interests today, and then,
Okay.
we will bring this back for approval in January. It may be
Mm-hmm.
that second, it'll most likely be the second meeting in January.
Good.
And
Okay.
then when the board adopts this strategic plan, then we have that as a framework as we continue to move through the budget process. But I could, share a draft with you in advance, so you can be able to provide some individual feedback on it before it gets to you for approval. So, at your last meeting, we talked about, goals. We talked about the goals that had been in place, for the past few fiscal years. And then we talked about what might you add to that moving forward. And this is what, the ideas that were generated just in that initial exercise at the last strategic planning retreat. So these, are very, they're kind of labels or categories, you know, they don't have a whole lot of detail. So I'm hoping that we can have some discussion this morning to really define what we're looking for in these areas. And, you know, maybe some of these come together, and I'll show you what I was thinking about on the next slide. But we talked about, the airport, broadband, economic development, school and PCC facilities, and, which I think in the past it had said improved school facilities, so we made sure to emphasize that that includes, PCC, and we added county facilities because we know that we have a lot going on in that area right now, a lot of needs. And then we have the tax rate, so there has been a goal set for the past few years to keep the tax rate flat, or some discussion about keeping it as low as possible, because there was a minimal increase this past year to support the debt issuance for the schools, of the 1/4 increase. So, you know, these are, again, they are broad in nature. And if we're shooting for creating kind of those focus areas with the goals that fall within each category, I thought, just for discussion purposes, I kind of created some headings and, grouped some of those 6 goals together. That may give you an opportunity to look back at the vision, the mission, the values. You know, are there things here that we need to add, in terms of our goals, to make sure that we're really, you know, working towards that vision? You know, what might be missing from what we've generated so far? And I know, Derek, you just used the phrase economic growth versus economic development. So would economic growth be a better heading than economic development, you know, as far as to emphasize what we're really trying to accomplish?
Well, I
Better
mean,
explain.
when I was thinking economic growth, I'm thinking of, housing, I'm thinking of, industry, new industry, and unemployment.
Okay,
And that all ties in to, are we seeing growth in our economy or not? And I know we're seeing an increase in housing right now, and more than I can remember in the last 4 years, I guess, seeing that happen. And in new industry, it's just, again, that's always, I know it's part of the economic development, but again, bringing in new industry into our county to support and help the unemployment. So they kind of all ties together. So when I was thinking of that, that's what economic growth,
Okay,
and being able to look at us in a year, 6 months, where we at, how we doing, and what are the numbers? So,
okay,
And with economic development, we gotta consider, the reasons why in some categories, and in particular water and sewer. I mean, it's, we can talk about growth, and that could be industrial as well as, housing, whatever, businesses, whatever it may be. But, there's a large need for improved water and sewer in Person County to enhance what Commissioner Sims is talking about here.
I
right.
think growth is a stronger word than development.
I think it's a little more clear from
Yeah.
the public perception and understanding what we're seeking
Yeah.
when we say that.
Yeah.
So I thought maybe we could generate some initial ideas within these groupings and then maybe break those out and get into a little more detail. I can copy those onto another slide so that it's not so small up there. But what I captured, what I started out with in that economic growth category was airport and broadband expansion. You just mentioned housing, industry, new and expanding, employment, infrastructure, water and sewer. And broadband might just fall into more of the infrastructure category versus being a standalone there.
the broadband, I know there is another grant that is coming up, is that correct? And that will
Yes.
be within the next 2 years, right?
Yes,
So, I mean, that's something that wherever we put it, is pursuing that grant and, for, more broadband.
right. So that is an example of a strategy for broadband would be to partner with the state and providers in the completing access to broadband program to utilize the county's ARP funding as matching dollars to continue to build out our broadband infrastructure.
And
fiber
people are
infrastructure.
beginning to comment about seeing the various utilities placing these, hey, they're going down this road, or they're going by my house and this sort of thing. So, there's people paying attention to the expansion, and it's good.
Yes.
Although we aren't totally covered yet, we still have those that might, be unserved or underserved, and we need to, take a look at those maps as they develop and expand to see who and where we're leaving out, where we could improve going forward. So that's in today's world, it's incredibly important.
Right, right. Well, and when you talk about housing from the county standpoint, what role do you see for the county in terms of supporting housing in our community? What are the outcomes that we would like to see when it comes to housing?
I think, and it probably ties into, to me, inspections, housing. If it's difficult to get inspections and it's delaying you to build a house yourself, then that becomes a little bit of a roadblock. And with the prices of lumber and everything going up, if it takes an excessive amount of time to get your inspections, then you're not going to see the building or housing as strong as it could be. And it just ties into that. I'm not it's not just inspections, but
Right.
that's part of it. And then you can go with our zoning, the zoning of the land or the development that someone may want to put in. Working with the developers on that.
Okay.
Health. That's
Okay.
also, got those 3 departments across the street over here that are vital to make this growth happen.
So making sure that we have the staff, resources, and processes in place that support development efforts in the county.
Yeah.
Okay? Okay. And I felt like airport fell within that category. Economic growth, when we focus on that as a tool for economic development. Do y'all feel like it's appropriate in that category?
I
Yeah,
definitely do.
And it's, I mean, we're still, I guess, pursuing, expansion, right, of the
Sure.
runway.
We are, it's in process.
Another
And-
thing to consider is another, hangar, if that's something that could, you know, come into play in the next couple of years. I don't know if it's that soon, but, you know. But, having another hangar out there again would bring, revenue into the county. Also, expanding the runway obviously will allow bigger jets, I guess, to come in and land at our airport.
Yeah, larger, but probably a key there would be the weight of the freight that would come in. That's been a hiccup there along in the past years where they have flights in scheduled into Person County, but because of the weight of the aircraft, they're diverted to other airports. So with the runway reinforcement that's in process and will be done in the spring, then the extension comes into play, which would be equally as strong. Then yes, we'll be able to land those larger aircraft here with greater abilities to transport freight. And along the lines of where we stand with the extension, the environmental study is in process, and they're going about that pretty much as we speak. And that takes about a year. Here it's incredibly slow, but we want to do it right and go by the book and get that done. So there's progress there. And there is interest, and we've worked that interest. I think our fixed-based operator out there does a tremendous job of working with prospects, and you know, he knows the business, he knows the clientele, and we're open to if someone wants to build a new hangar adjacent to or somewhere else at that location, then we're certainly open to doing that, as well as going forward with box hangars. We've talked about that a lot. It's not, no longer do we use the term T hangars, they're box, which are cheaper to build, but utilizes the space to a greater extent than previously with a T hangar that's so restrictive. So that board's working, I think, progressively and long-term thoughts and doing a good job of that. So I think it's a key to future development to have the airport of its size and regain the status of a, what's the term that they use? We were once considered is it an alternate? What's that term they use?
I'm not sure.
Yeah, and they took away that title from Person County a couple of years ago, 2 or 3 years ago.
Okay.
So,
You made mention about something that's going. What you mention that it's going to happen in the springtime?
re-strengthening of the current runway, just, I guess you might say, adding asphalt, adding another layer there, but, yeah, that's, with the weather coming, you know, that can't be done during the winter anyway, but, and actually during that time, the airport would have to be shut down for a period of time, and I don't know what that'll be.
Oh, during this,
Yes,
Oh,
during
strengthening
that
part,
time,
all right,
right,
okay.
so you gotta repave it all, so
right.
it'll be a period of time there, and hopefully short.
Chairman Powell, you're on that board, correct?
Yes, sir.
What, I know initially the plan was to cross over Frank Timberlake Road, if I'm remembering correctly,
Kate's Mill,
Kate's Mill.
yes, sir,
Yeah. Is that still?
yes, sir.
Okay,
That's part of the plan, as it stands right now.
so will the county, the other county will have to purchase property from,
So-
if we don't
Some,
already own?
yeah, some, yes,
Okay.
yeah.
How much past the existing roadway will it extend?
Sir, I can't, footage-wise, I don't remember. I've seen those numbers, but certainly cut off before 5:01, but it would require closing of Gates Mill on that end
Right,
and rerouting
right.
on the, I guess you'd call it the southern end or southeast
I've
end.
had a lot of
Yeah.
people gripe to me about that expansion, and, I keep telling them, hey, this is, you want Roxborough to grow, you're gonna have to make changes.
I would encourage them to look at the maps, and it's somewhat of an inconvenience, or will be in a sense, but then in the long run.
Get used to it.
Yes, thank you.
Right.
Yeah. So, I think it's a good plan.
And as far as the airport goes, the other topic of discussion that has recently resurfaced is the terminal. As
That's what I
far
was
as
getting ready to
expanding
ask.
or,
Yeah.
so the commission did, talk about that at their last meeting and plans to explore that further at an upcoming meeting, so.
With the
whether
increase
that's-
of air traffic and certainly it's something I thought that probably should be on the radar for that terminal as to what we can do to upgrade that.
And the board does actually have some concept drawings and as well as some pictures of similar facilities that might be considered by the commission. So that's been talked about and looked into and part of their plan to move forward.
Okay, and then we also, when we talk about employment here, so as that relates to economic growth.
Yes.
So what do you see, as far as the county's focus, our job when it comes to employment?
Well, it's kind of, to me, it's kind of two things. One, when talking about employment from the county perspective, there, again, was, and just mentioned earlier, hiring the best people we can hire when we are, employing people here.
Yeah,
On the other side of the employment is, we, as I said, tracking, if you've got the housing's increasing, if your new industry is increasing, or you're bringing in new industry, then certainly our unemployment rate should drop for the county.
right.
Hopefully. And that's what I would want to track, is how we're doing with that. I think we have a lot of people, and I don't know the numbers, I remember hearing it before, we have a lot of people that are going, to Durham back and forth. And you see it every morning when I come to work and see the traffic. So, again, that's helping the employment for our county, if you will, because going outside, certainly I want to see what we can do to get people to stay in our
So
county.
more jobs here,
and more
job
jobs.
creation.
So,
Mm-hmm.
And
Okay.
see if we can somehow fix the turnover rate.
yeah.
That's a huge problem, and that's
And
something
that-
we need to look into, and we'll see if we can figure out the problem.
And that's within
address
our
it.
organization, because we're kind of looking, what are those external factors? So more jobs within the county as a whole to employ our citizens, attract industry, attract, small businesses, support entrepreneurs, in the creation of new jobs, to employ people within Person County, lower the unemployment rate. But then you're also talking about our workforce and hiring the best and decreasing turnover. Is that what you were talking about? Okay.
I think pay scale is a tremendous impact upon why so many people leave Roxborough to go south to work. And that contributes to the turnover rate that we have across the county in every aspect, be it governmental workforce or industrial. I know we tried to remain competitive, but it seems like the last pay study we did, we increased, we got people pretty much satisfied, and then the other counties surrounding us increased their rates.
Right.
So how do you stay competitive with, say, Durham? You can't. But the other counties, north, south, north, east, and west, we can compete with them. But I would say the majority of the citizens living in this county travel south to Durham and Raleigh, Hillsborough to work around the hospitals.
So we want to make sure that those
RTP, et
jobs
cetera.
we are trying to create,
Yeah, I know.
attract, expand within Person County are well-paying jobs, right? I mean,
Exactly.
that's a
Yes,
important factor to
Competitive
consider.
with other
right, right,
counties as best
Okay.
we can.
yeah.
And also, I mean, I think about workforce development, whether that's in this category or specifically related to unemployment, or if we look at that, you know, within education. But I see that as an important factor when it comes to trying to create more jobs, making sure everybody's prepared for them.
I think supporting, of course, it's down here, capital investment, but PCC, they're our main, workforce development, if you wanna go as far as training.
Mm-hmm.
They're the main, campus for us for our, citizens to go to. Now, they can go to some other, you know, colleges, but, I think we need to, as a county, you know, keep them going and invest when we can.
You know, Dirk,
Well, that always comes up when we are talking with potential industrial clients,
Right.
that they want to know about the workforce. They do have a keen interest in educating that workforce and training that workforce. And we have PCC right here that has, I think, always come up with a good effort there to work with those clients and have the training in place as they would need it. They're very, very nimble and they can change from, regardless of the industry, they can accommodate their needs with industrial training, and PCC has done a good job of that. And I think the education system as a whole, I said a while ago, K-14, because public schools here, they have a focus that begins, I believe, in the 8th grade, maybe 8th grade or 6th grade, where they begin to talk a little bit about education and taking it on through, at minimum, a 2-year program at the community college level that will revolve around local industry, and that's an important part of what we're looking at going forward.
Yeah. So when we look at, so workforce development is definitely a component of economic growth. And then when we move down and we look at the capital investment, we've specifically stated PCC. So in order to support their efforts to educate our children as well as they are growing into adults, and continue workforce development in general, ensuring that they have modern facilities. I mean, that's something that the county is responsible for funding and contributing towards. And then the county also provides funding to the community college for operational needs as well. So that is part of how we influence, you know, how well, you know, they can do in those efforts. So that falls within the capital investment realm. And also, I'm just kind of train of thought here, jotting notes and creating categories, but if we have education as a category, falls within that as well. So,
you know, looking at the education side of it, a lot of these that are getting their diplomas 2-year or whatever, we don't really have a lot of facility department of whatever, industrial, or we don't have the facilities here to support them staying here once they get these diplomas.
going
So
back
that's
to the
very-
jobs,
Yes.
right?
We have got to
Right.
get some development in this county. Got to. That's detrimental. I mean, it's gotta happen.
Western Sewer, where would that fall in place on this list?
What'd you say there?
Western Sewer, the sewer that we got, that we're looking at.
Well, I had plugged in under economic growth infrastructure to include water and sewer.
So that's
So
it.
I think the western
I didn't see it,
sewer.
but you got that in there? Okay.
Yeah,
All right.
I know you can't see it up here, but that's where I plugged it in.
Oh, okay.
It's very small where I'm
All right.
typing up here, but.
Good.
Have they
Okay.
started that yet?
As of a week or so ago, they were still waiting on a letter from the state that would say, yes, you get this money. I
Okay.
mean, they're still waiting on the final step in the process to confirm the
Thought it
money
was
that they'll
already
be receiving
confirmed.
through the budget process.
I thought
And,
they-
and that maybe they've gotten it in the last week or so.
Thought it was already confirmed.
Well,
Yes and no?
politically, yes, but until,
They
Till
have
you
to
get
be
the check.
issued a letter
Alrighty,
that formalizes that from the state.
okay.
logistically, there are steps in that process. And yeah,
Right.
we're sitting here, but I think it's gonna happen, but,
And they're still working on it. It's just,
Mhm.
you know, there's only so much progress they can make with available funding. So the bulk of it will come once that has been confirmed.
While we're on this topic, will this go all the way to the county line? Where would it stop at? Where would it
I,
start
I
at?
can't, I don't have the plans in my head.
And to the
Tell
airport,
you.
at least to the airport.
I think it's in that, it does not go to the county line, not
Yeah.
that far. I don't know that it actually goes to the airport, so I
Really?
won't comment on that.
Okay.
We've already got the water and everything down there, but this plan, I'm not sure, we need Brooks Lockhart here.
Mhm.
But,
Let me call him.
it's not all inclusive, and I think there should hopefully be a second phase. Somebody should be working with our representatives to ensure phase two, if you wanna call it that, next steps, to be more inclusive countywide than it is, so, and look, we've worked on this closely with the city for the last, 3 years in particular. Our board has funded, their studies and engineering fees and contributed, to that effort. And so, this 46 million you're talking about there is what was needed, and, I'm excited about it, and I'm like you, I'm impatient. Let's get her done,
You know,
Hopefully.
I'm on board 100%, and I kind of abbreviate my sentences a lot, as y'all know. And,
Point
cause
taken.
I'm hit, let's roll, you know.
Yeah.
But I'm anxious to see this happen, see it developed and in operation. Cause it will create, a great asset to this county.
I think it will. Much needed.
Yeah, absolutely. It's been way overdue.
So if we look at the capital investment focus area for our goals, we've talked about facilities, so we've talked about PCC facilities and the needs there. Schools, so we are funding ADA and safety improvements currently. There are also classroom size mandates that they're continuing to need to focus on meeting, as well as potential growth in the population and the student base that they're serving. So all of those things to take into consideration facility-wise moving forward. When we talk here about capital investment, you do adopt a capital improvement plan each year. So the process that we go through to create that plan is that departments, county departments, as well as PCC and Person County Schools submit their request for capital funding. So just like to talk through with you this morning about where your priorities are, because that will help us in terms of communicating out to the departments and the schools, you know, as far as what is it that the board would like to prioritize in terms of funding over the next, you know, that plan spans 5 years. So, you know, we're looking at 2 to 4 years for our goals. but what is it, you know, that you would like to see, prioritized beyond what we've already talked about? And maybe getting some specifics from you related to county facilities will help us, you know, kind of shape those recommendations this time around for the capital improvement plan.
That's the elephant in the room there. Jesus Christ, that's a large,
Well, we certainly need an update from the schools, because that has been a big one, to see what is actually being done right now versus what their long-range goals were, and so where we stand with those. I think we know a little bit about county facilities, and we're working toward improvement there. And, well, as PCC as well, I think we've had some discussions along that line. We might need to close the loop a little bit and see actually, in particular, I think the schools, we need to know what else is out there. I don't know what the school board is doing, and related to enrollment, class size mandates are very stringent, and it's not as simple as saying, okay, you have 100 kids and you want 20 per classroom. Well, it's not that simple. It doesn't work that way. There are waivers, there are extensions or exceptional plans there, so you just can't divide X number of kids by X number of classrooms. So that becomes a large factor when they're working on their facilities. So I don't know going forward what Person County schools are looking at in the way of new schools,
Yeah.
school closures, consolidation. I don't know, so.
You said in the next 5 years, I mean, I think it's obvious in the next 5 years, we're gonna be looking at building a new school. I mean, I think that's inevitable.
Well, yeah, you
That's
go
correct.
by sheer numbers in enrollment, and everybody, I think, likes a small school, community school, but at the same time, the overhead and the expenses of running a school period, from the high school to an elementary, it's still, it's kind of gets down to the numbers.
Yep.
And so again, I don't know what they're thinking there and what the needs are going forward.
I'd like to add that my wife being a teacher in Durham County, if I'm not mistaken, her state advised regulations are 18 per class, or is it 20?
I don't know either, the exact number, but that usually it's a range of 16 to 22 or 24, so it's
I
a,
know
it's a
she
big range.
has went
But
up to
then-
24,
Yeah.
where she's above, where the state
Then-
level tells her she can be.
Yeah, but then they have that added category in there that you don't normally see, that they say, oh, well, you can go beyond that, it could be 24, it could be 26, I've heard
Oh,
of
it
30.
has been for her,
Yes, and it is here in the county. And,
I'm sure.
in any classroom, high school, elementary, imagine having 30 children in a
Like it used to
classroom
be
at one
when we
time.
were in school.
And the old saying, it's not the pantyhose approach. One size doesn't fit all, because you've got all the variables in there with learning, and that's tough. And you know that, so.
Oh, absolutely.
I don't know what their plans are.
I done eat this for
worth
22
looking
years, I
into.
know all about that.
Yeah.
And we'll get some more information
Yeah.
from the school
Yeah, that's
system as
good.
we move
That's
into
good.
that. So
We'll
as
move
far
along.
as, county
We'll have to-
facilities,
we'll have to
because
have
we
that.
did add that specifically to the list in the last meeting. We have some immediate needs with the leases expiring with Human Services and with the PI and Recycling Center, merger. So for the board, are there other priorities that you have right now as it relates to county facilities, in that 2 to 4 year timeframe that you'd
We'll
like
have
to
to
focus
start
on?
planning on EMS as well.
Mhm.
they're growing out of their building, so,
Right.
2 to 5 years, that's something, that's in the plans too. That's
Yeah, we
something
need
we need to
sorta
look into.
Stick with that, I guess,
Looking down the
because
road.
we've had the concept presentation
Right.
and, this sort of thing, and, number one there, I guess, would be funding. I think we
Mhm.
sort of honed in a little bit on a location that we could utilize, but, yeah, that needs to be
Okay,
in the plan.
okay.
Yes, it does.
Are there any others that kind of rise to the top of your list, in terms of priorities?
I think we've hit the highest priorities
Yeah,
as
those are
far
big
as I'm
ones.
viewing them.
All right. So let's talk a little bit more about the tax rate and whether that is a goal in and of itself. If that gets more into, if we, going back to our vision and mission, does that fit more into our, like a resourcefulness kind of thing? I don't know, where do y'all see that residing?
I think it's stagnant.
I mean, if someone asks you, what is the tax rate gonna be next year? It's all of us, I think, most of us here will say, well, we'd like to keep it level and not increase taxes. And then the next thing you have to deal with, that we cannot see the future, we're sitting here making goals and plans, is that if something comes up to where, we've got to, do something and do quick, and then, okay, how do we stand financially? What can we, what do we have available? And then if you get to that point where you say, okay, we're gonna have to do something, we gotta come up with revenue somewhere, then you look at raising the tax rates. But that's usually the last thing for me that I wanna do. I'd like to make sure we've examined every avenue of what we can do to prevent raising taxes. But I think if you look at the last 4 years or so, it's been very minimal that we've raised taxes, I think. And then we had the fire tax that we increased, so I think, and, just to me, the tax rate, that's a tricky thing to say, what is our goal 2-3 years from now? Because we don't know what's gonna happen in the future, and, from a financial standpoint. And it's something we take, year to year, where we're at, in my opinion. So, again, my goal is to keep it as minimum as possible. But to sit here and say we're gonna keep it at zero would be, I think, the wrong
That's
thing to
everyone's
say.
goal.
Well,
Huh?
I think that's everyone's goal, just keep it as
yeah, we
low as possible.
certainly wanna do
Just-
that, but
You never know what
at the
happens.
same time, we're sitting here talking about
Yeah.
Person County Governmental Services.
Right.
And it costs money.
Yeah.
It costs money to.
Ever increasing cost too.
To do the EMS facility. It costs money to improve the schools. It costs money to, again, provide the services to the people of Person County that they want and deserve and would like to see. And then you factor in inflation. What is, and we go back to a 5-year plan 5 years ago, where did we stand then? It does not look near today like it did 5 years ago with just inflation there alone. So I think, having said that, I think we have done very well as a county to maintain that rate at the current rate and with the minimal increases that we've had in the past 2 to 3 years. I think we've done a good job utilizing grants and additional funding in a few categories, and keeping in mind the debt service going forward. And so I think we're doing a good job, but I don't want it to increase any more than anyone else, the tax rate. I don't want it to increase. But when I go buy a gallon of milk or a loaf of bread, then it's not what it was a year or 2 or 5 ago. And so the cost of operations and the salary plan that we approved and developed and put in force is certainly something to, going forward again, the salaries, we talk about that with employment and why people drive out of town. It's all about the money. And no, we cannot compete with the Durhams and the Wakes and the Orange
Right.
counties, which are easy access.
This way we can.
But we just need to continue to do all we can. I'm not saying that that's gonna cause a tax increase, because what we did there did not cause a tax increase. So I think, again, we're doing a commendable job, but,
So far.
none of us have a crystal ball, and tomorrow's an unknown, and we have to be flexible.
Growth is coming,
Yep, it is.
and we gotta be ready for it.
And
And I think I know I'm the only one that's not against raising taxes. Because I want to be ready at all times as this county proceeds to grow. I mean, this involves a whole lot. You're looking at the whole county, the development side of it, the housing side of it, the educational side of it. There's a lot involved in this puzzle here.
it is.
And I'm not afraid to put a 2 or 3 cent tax increase on the residents. You'd be surprised how much revenue that would create in 2 or 3 years. But you could always drop it back down.
Oh, yeah, go either
But,
way.
but to have that sustainable or on-hand money as and when needed, I think it's detrimental that we have to do something. That's just my thoughts. Now, y'all have heard me say that more than one time, too.
Me.
Every time this is brought up.
Personally, I mean, I don't know, it's very rare that once you raise the taxes, that they ever go back down, that I'm aware of. We get used to that, and then there's more expense and it just grows, it just never, you're never gonna go back.
Well, the county,
Not in my
county
opinion.
did that once, a few years ago.
And it
came
turned right back around,
Came
yes,
back to bite us.
yeah, so again, and
And that's
it's,
due to
whatever you wanna raise is
inflation.
raised, but, or what you wanna support, but I'm just saying, but I don't see us ever saying, okay, we're gonna raise it here, but then we're gonna go back. I just haven't never seen it happen.
What I'm looking at long-term, all of these school expenditures we have and facing us, and then this project on the north side of the town, PCC. I mean, we're talking billions of dollars. And where was I going with this? If we're not ready, we can't proceed without going into debt or bond usage. And we don't want to go into debt. We gotta have a sustainable amount of funding at all times for everything, including the employees' salaries.
So in our conversations this morning, you have brought up employees and our focusing on hiring the best employees, our pay and benefits, decreasing turnover. And so what I was looking at is possibly creating a focus area for organizational excellence, where we can talk some about our employees, but we could also include fiscal responsibility there and kind of do away with this as being its standalone, the tax rate piece as its standalone stated goal, but bring that down into the organizational excellence under fiscal responsibility and note that, the goal is to keep the flat tax rate and to minimize increases based on necessity, something along those lines. How do y'all feel about that? We just kind of bundle that in with, some of those internal goals that we'll have organizationally.
I would like to remind you one more time, every one of you. I just got hit with a 13% tax increase because I live in a city. Then I pay the county taxes. I'm looking at, 23 odd % increase of taxes every year, now forward. But I'm sorry, I'm looking long-term, and that's what we all are looking long-term. Yes, I would love to keep it flat. Would love to keep it as low as possible. But as we stand right now, looking at everything that we're facing, we're looking at a big giant out there that's looking down our throats, and we cannot currently cover all the expenses that are needed.
So as we look at our
It's a
priorities.
giant out there staring at us.
Right, so as we move into the budget process and we look at our priorities, that will drive that discussion. I mean, the board did decide to do a small increase because of the prioritization of the school system's needs. So those will be discussions during the budget process as they come along. But what I was proposing as far as, in actually outlining our goals would be to just kind of take away that tax rate as a standalone objective and then bring that down into that organizational excellence
That's
and
good.
fiscal responsibility. Does that sound okay to everybody?
It does, I do like.
I know it's a
like to insert
nuance, but-
One more comment.
Okay,
In our Recreation Advisory Board meeting last night, John Hill, the director, reminded me that their funding has been really slack lately, and they have had rotten poles to fall on the athletic fields. That is an economic driver also. If you've got good parks, good fields to play on, that will bring in growth within the county. And he mentioned CIP funding is gonna come back again next year for more funding. I'm telling him, they're about out of money now, buddy. And we got this
But. that's
campus over here at Person Senior High School. It's not a Person High School, it's Person Senior High School to me. That is a big sum of money, and if I remember correctly, Derek, I think we've been on this for 2 years funding that instead of 1 year. We got one more year to go after this one, correct?
Funding for what?
ADA compliant, and then the stadium.
well, it's now built, we've issued debt, so it's 20-year debt that we'll be paying for those improvements.
Really?
Yeah.
Debt?
Mhm.
Wow. I didn't realize that.
Yeah.
We're in the hole there.
Okay.
So, but you are bringing up the parks, that, and we do have a investment that we're making through our stormwater fund, primarily in grant funding in the county farm park. I mean, that's one of the big projects that we have, but you've also identified some other needs with our
Absolutely.
current parks.
All these
Okay.
athletic fields that cannot be used currently.
Well, that would be CIP coming
Yeah,
from your
yes.
department heads, and
Yes.
so, yeah, we'll,
Yes.
Right.
yeah, that's good.
Okay, so, moving on from the capital investment, so we've talked some about education, we've also used the terminology lifelong learning, maybe that's the focus area that we identify. But the county budget, of course, supports both our school system and our community college. So we've talked about the facilities piece, we've talked about the value that we place on the K through 14 learning platform. Are there other things, related to lifelong learning within the county that goes beyond the support that we have for the school system and the, and Piedmont Community College, that gets back to what we were speaking about in our values with the wording that we use, the personal and professional enrichment for individuals? What else do you see within that category of lifelong learning in terms of the services that we're providing through county government? I mean, I think cultural arts is frequently seen, could be within that category.
Isn't that self-funded? Through the rec department or through the cultural arts center up down at the Kirby?
Some of it is, I mean, they charge fees for
Yeah.
their programs,
Yeah.
but it is part of the county budget as
And
well. the
entrance
services
fees
that-
to participate, and the concessions, and the
Right,
people who come to view the programs, the plays, et cetera.
yeah.
So
It's
it's
part of the.
pretty much, my understanding, self-funded.
It's part of the services that we provide as a county government, those opportunities for citizens.
And the rental of the building, or the rooms upstairs, there's a lot going on up there,
Mm-hmm,
virtually every day.
mm-hmm.
You know, I just wanted to bring it up because that was discussed last night. And you missed out. You missed a good meeting, it was long.
Just in going back to our vision, you know, we've talked, the vision, Person County is safe, thriving, diverse, where people come to live, work, learn, play, serve, and grow. So are there some keywords there in that vision statement that you wanna make sure that we have covered in the goals? Like, are there any missing pieces here so far on what we've discussed this morning that you wanna make sure that we capture?
I'm well pleased with what we've covered. I think we've hit on all the key structural development and going forward strategies, from my mind's eye.
I think it's well covered. The thing there is implementation going forward, you know, where we, yeah, how do we go forward
How
from
do
that?
you-
But
yeah.
I think it's
Yeah.
pretty complete.
All right, we'll do some more work at the staff level just to really define these goals and expand upon those, and then work on those strategies, and then come back to y'all with that, following that thought process. Thank you, made a lot of headway. So moving on from that work there on the goal setting, we will work on the strategies to support the goals, and then hopefully be able to have this adopted in January, and then work on our process for how we'll do progress reports, to be able to demonstrate, to track our own progress, and then demonstrate to the board and the public, the progress that's being made. So any questions of me or additional thoughts related to the strategic planning process?
I'm good.
I'm good.
Good.
You did good.
Thank y'all.
Thank you.
It was a very good discussion. Appreciate it.
Yeah, thank you. Okay,
That's it for that
Is that all?
section.
all done? Okay, then, having heard this discussion and shared those thoughts and looking forward, do we have a motion to adopt the strategic plan?
Make a motion to
Yeah,
adopt.
we'll
Is that
come
something we
back
wanna do that
with that formal document in January for adoption. So
Do
we'll do
we-
some more work.
We don't need any kind of motion.
We don't need
I'm
any
reading in red
decision
here.
this morning
Okay.
on that.
All right,
I'm
so,
almost fine.
Thank you for
We're all
all of your
Yeah.
thoughts.
all right. We
Yeah, go
will,
get you a drink of water.
Now I've got to let it go some more.
yeah,
Sorry.
we'll need to go into closed session, but, let's call this just a recess here if you want to.
Okay, yeah.
Come back and-
Okay, thank you.
So you got plenty of refreshments down here and,
Oh, yeah, I forgot about that.
yeah, so.
My little bitty biscuit's gone.
Clerk has done good, healthy treats before us and we haven't even been